Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. Max Verstappen takes pole position for the Dutch Grand Prix to the surprise of absolutely nobody, but two big storylines up and down the grid as well. Alex Albon and Williams, what a day from them. Alex matching his best ever qualifying performance with a P4 in the Williams, will start on the second row tomorrow, but Lewis Hamilton out in Q2, starting only P13 until potentially penalties applied elsewhere. Not happy at all about getting impeded on many of his laps, and explaining the reason why he couldn't quite get the lap together at the end of Q2. Remember to tweet your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Now first of all, just wanted to give an update on the Ricciardo thing. It was confirmed after I recorded yesterday's video that indeed he's broken a metacarpal or something in his hand wrist type area, so yeah, not great at all. Liam Lawson is in, didn't qualify particularly well today, but you know, potentially better things ahead for him, and more than likely he's going to be there in Monza as well, and potentially beyond, because it's been discussed that more than likely Ricciardo's going to be out for a good few races here. Normally, it's going to take you 6 to 12 weeks really to heal something like that, but he's going to be in, I think he's in Barcelona probably now, and the doctor that did the surgery on Lance Stroll's wrist that had him racing like 12 or 13 days after he broke his wrist earlier this season is probably going to operate on Ricciardo today or tomorrow. So there is a chance, right? And I think that Horner says that Singapore will be his target in several weeks' time. So yeah, we don't know, but not the ideal time for Ricciardo, because I'm sure he'd really love to be in that car right now, especially with Perez having another bit of a shocker, you've got to say, that we'll get into in the coming minutes. So practice goes down. Everyone was kind of exploring outside of the track here, even Verstappen and Perez both having a hard time. Again, the Ferrari, I don't know what it is. I know people were joking about this, like escape roads being called Scuderia Way or something, because they were just, even Leclerc finished a fast lap, and then he wasn't even on a fast lap, and he still locked up and went on at turn 1, narrowly avoiding hitting the wall on many an occasion here. Lawson found himself backwards as well towards the end of this practice session, so he didn't have the greatest time, let's say, and there was also discussions on an engine change for Leclerc, and apparently he took a new gearbox as well this weekend. Possible there's some sort of issue with like the data correlation on the new engine, so they might have gone back to an old one. Don't know if with the crash we're going to see in a few minutes here there was you know, any potential damage there, but definitely the crash smashing the rear of the car as he did into the wall wouldn't have been ideal for the gearbox or the engines. That's not exactly a great sign for Ferrari and Leclerc, but to be honest, all weekend Ferrari just didn't really show any pace, to be honest, and it was actually McLaren that were giving their best go of actually trying to challenge Red Bull, it seemed, today. Now, the rain was rolling in for qualifying, and it was an absolute mess, actually, during the F2 race, or the F2 sprint race earlier today. And this actually came up from Max. So as soon as he's on track, he says, mate, what is going on with this car? I've got no grip. I'm spinning everywhere. And as soon as I thought, this, all right, here we go. Max P1, Max pole position, because this is like the new Hamilton, my tyres are gone, Bono. When he says it, and then immediately the car is in a good position, and he's, you know, dropping in purple sectors and fastest laps, which is pretty much what Verstappen did here. So I don't know why this is such a consistent trend at this point, but I don't think anyone, even after reading this, really doubted that Verstappen was going to get pole. Now, Q1 was very interesting. So at this point, Verstappen went P1 just about, as we just mentioned, and it was an absolute mess further down the grid, especially because Hamilton, the Mercedes didn't have much pace, but it was okay enough. He was getting blocked left, right, and centre. I mean, he got blocked by Stroll coming out of this corner, while Stroll was starting a fast lap for sure, and Stroll is currently in the steward's room probably discussing that incident and might get a 3-place penalty as a result. There was also this incident where there was like a gaggle of cars at the final corner here. I think they eventually said, you know what, Alonso, wasn't really your fault because this is Alonso in front, but I'm not sure Alonso could really have done much here, but Hamilton was on a flyer. When there's 20 cars on track, there's going to be impedings. It's just how it goes. So Hamilton sneaks through in the end. It was a bit sketchy actually for Mercedes, because a lot of the drivers, they stayed out on one set of inters the entire time, hoping that it would continue to dry up and the inters would still be fine at the end. Turned out though that it was starting to rain a little bit in the final few minutes, so putting in a lap roughly 3 minutes from the end of the session, that was the optimal time. The man that did that was Alex Albon. We saw on Friday that Williams is good around here, and surprisingly good at that. Sargent sneaks in P15, which, just a second down on Albon, but, I mean, wow, what a lap from Albon, and Williams, why is the Williams good here? I don't know if Williams know why the Williams is good here, and I know that James Vowles was saying after the session that it's kind of, well, conditions and slightly drying up, and they got the car in the perfect window, but, I mean, it was looking good all weekend, and Alex Albon especially was delivering today. Both the Alphas out in Q1, Ocon as well was a big surprise, Magnussen and then Lawson as well that couldn't really put anything decent together. Leclerc was having an absolute rampage on the radio as well, frustrated that Ferrari had barely got him through. I mean, yeah, the timing wasn't great. He barely got through, as did Hamilton towards the end of that. And the big talking point in Q2 was the two Williams cars. Albon did a great lap, but so did Logan Sargent. And incredibly, Logan Sargent, for the first time in his career, through into Q3. But the big surprise was Hamilton out. Now, it was really weird, actually, because this session was drying up. You really wanted to finish your lap right at the very death, which is what most drivers did and why most of the drivers improved and got through. Hamilton, I'm not really sure what Mercedes or Hamilton were thinking, because his push lap finished with about 40 seconds on the clock. So a lot of other drivers were finishing their laps nigh on, 1.5, 2 minutes later when the track is significantly faster. Hamilton maybe thought that he could go for 2 laps. He pushed once, did a decent lap, but not great. Got to be said as well, Hamilton's lap can't have been that good, just because I think Leclerc did his fastest lap at the same time, and Hamilton was still a few tenths off that. So it either wasn't good enough, or there was some impeding, actually, because it was noted that there was some potential impeding here through this final corner. Again, this is Yuki Tsunoda in front, and as you can see here, Hamilton would really like to be using probably more of this curb, but he has to duck down the inside, so he probably lost a bit of a, maybe he lost a tenth there just because of the run, and I think he was like 0.84 or something off, or 0.084 off getting through. So maybe that cost him. I don't know. But I think Hamilton can't be too mad at other circumstances in this case, because he just didn't really put together a big lap when it was necessary. But I'm still confused why he didn't go one later. I don't know if Mercedes thought there was rain coming in or something, so they wanted him to finish his fast lap a little bit early, but he went to push again, and he said that basically the tyres got too hot and his second lap wasn't going to happen. So there was only one attempt pretty much. And yeah, Hamilton P13 might go to P12 with Stroll, but with a potential penalty there. But I mean, yeah, not ideal at all for Mercedes, a car that, to be honest, the Mercedes doesn't have much pace, it doesn't seem, this weekend relative to the McLaren and to the Red Bull. So it might not matter in the grand scheme of things in terms of trying to get a race win. But this was meant to be really good for Mercedes. Mercedes were hoping, maybe we can do a Budapest, but not to be for various reasons. Hamilton probably from the Hamilton side and from the Mercedes side. So frustration for sure. Hamilton mentioning that the tyres are overheating and some of the issues they're going to have tomorrow.
I did 2 fast laps at the end and the tyres overheated, so couldn't improve on the last lap.
So what sort of car have you got for the race tomorrow then, do you think?
The same car as I disqualified in, which wasn't really good. So hopefully when the car's a little bit heavier, maybe we'll be able to progress forward. It's not an easy track to move forwards on, but tomorrow's a new day. So I'll give it my best tomorrow.
Especially when, as he said, the car that he's going to have in the race is the same car that he qualified in, which wasn't particularly good. Maybe if the car's heavier, it's going to be better, but yeah, not looking so good for Mercedes. Now, George Russell did put in a solid lap, but that came at this point, and this was kind of funny to witness, really. It was kind of sad in a way, but everyone was blowing up on Twitter about our Logan Sargent, what is a kilometre, all this stuff, and, fair play, he did a great job to get it to Q3, and then immediately after putting in a lap, bins it in the wall. It was pretty tricky, this part of the lap. 2 crashes in Q3 in positions where you don't usually see crashes, to be honest. Okay, it's definitely possible to crash here on this circuit, and it's happened before, but where Leclerc crashed, I don't know if I've seen anyone crash in my life, to be honest. So anyway, he put it in the wall, and every time this happened, the track was getting drier and drier, and right at the end of Q3, it was pretty much optimal dry conditions. So Sargent was eventually P10 after this, and then another red flag, as this was the standing. So Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, and it meant the track was going to continue to dry. I mean, we expected pole to be something like a 110, like mid, something like that. So it was obvious that drivers were going to improve elsewhere after the track continued to dry. But even at this point, Perez is 1.3 seconds off, and we'll get back to him in a second. Leclerc, though, I don't really understand. So this is coming into the series of right-handers, and Leclerc just couldn't really get the car slowed down. He tried to turn, but it didn't really turn. And I don't want to say it's Leclerc's fault too much, because it did seem like the car just massively understeered, but it was just a bit of a goofy crash, you know what I mean? Like, he was looking like he was going to turn right, and then just went straight off the track onto the grass and binned it in the wall. And it's just a weird place to crash. It doesn't usually happen here, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, the Ferrari was having a nightmare, braking and turning, and Leclerc was not a happy man. So in the wall he goes, smashes the rear of the car into the wall as well, because he goes in like kind of front left first. The rear of the car slams round, so maybe the gearbox isn't so happy about that. And yeah, completely destroys the front suspension. So just a tragic weekend from Ferrari, to be perfectly honest. And even Sainz ended up only P6. These were the times at the end of Q3 Verstappen put together, as you'd expect, an absolute monster lap in front of the home crowd to close out the Saturday, a 1:10.5. It never really looked like anyone was going to get particularly close to Verstappen as far as I'm concerned. Norris was close, but I mean, Verstappen always delivers in the final part of qualifying at the moment. Norris had a great first sector, was actually ahead of Verstappen. Couple of mistakes in the middle sector, pretty much cost him all his lap time. Russell was 7/10 down only in the Mercedes. And then Albon, who was briefly P3 before Russell then pit him, and Russell was very happy for Williams and his former team, and, you know, obviously Alex himself in the post-race or the post-qualifying debrief, I suppose. Alonso 5th, Sainz 6th. So that's a really great grid, you gotta say. Like, that top 6 is really exciting. You've got 6 different teams, 6 different cars in the top 6, but Perez only P7. And look, Max deserves a lot of credit, but on the other side of the story, I mean, come on, Perez 1.3 seconds off Max, like, it's a short lap as well. 1.3 seconds off. The conditions were tricky-ish, I suppose. I mean, we did see 2 cars go off track, so I guess they were tricky, and Perez wanted to ensure that he wasn't bidding it in the wall. But still, I mean, this comes on a weekend where Helmut Marko just said, look, Sergio, you've got to improve your qualifying or you're not going to come back next year. Ricciardo would have loved to somehow find a way to out-qualify him this weekend, but obviously that's not happened. But still, 1.3 seconds off, getting out-qualified by a Ferrari, an Aston, a Williams, a Mercedes and a McLaren is not exactly a great look, is it? And yes, well done, Perez. You made it to Q3, right? Well done. But it's not great, let's be honest. Piastri as well, if he had a bit of dodgy final run as well, so he was further behind. And let's be honest, if Leclerc put together a proper lap and if Hamilton was into Q3, then probably Perez is like P9 or something. So yeah, not really a great look there, to be honest. And just to close out with this great picture of Charles Leclerc doing his best Alonso impression by getting in this deck chair after he crashed out of the session. So everyone can tweet your thoughts and all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.